Hello and welcome to another tier list. Today we're going to be going over Game of the Year over the years and putting them in tiers. Anyway, what I did was I went from 1990 to 2019 and I looked at all the major players in Game of the Year, like IGN and all those kind of things, a few from Europe and Japan, and I basically just saw which games were the majority Game of the Year each year from 1990 to 2019. Those games are representing their years. We're going to put these in tiers of Game of the Years in chronological order, starting with 1990. As an avid Nintendo fan, I think I should point out that of these 30 titles, 10 of them released as Nintendo exclusives, and many of them have stayed that way. Next closest to that is Sony, with about 6, most of those being pretty recent, and at least 2 of those pretty recent wins were artsy-fartsy games that don't even interest me, so who cares? There's a reason that I continue to believe Nintendo consoles are often the only ones worth getting besides a PC, because they got good games, and most of the good stuff for Xbox and PlayStation ends up on the PC anyway, brah. That's my major bias out of the way. Let's get into the list. So in 1990, we got this game called Strider or something for Sega Genesis, and I didn't play it. So we're starting on a high note with haven't played. Then you get Sonic the Hedgehog, the original one. For me, it's just awesome. Notice all of these are good, except for hasn't aged perfectly. None of these games are bad games, otherwise they wouldn't have been the majority Game of the Year. For me, Sonic's awesome. I don't think it's amazing. It's certainly not the greatest of all time. It's better than great, and it's aged well, so it's awesome. Street Fighter 2 is great, but I think some of its mechanics are a little off, and it's a little ruthless at the wrong times, which brings us to Mortal Kombat, which for me is just slightly better than Street Fighter 2, so it's awesome. And I think it's because it plays about the same as Street Fighter, but just the gore and the craziness of Mortal Kombat, I just enjoy playing the game better. Like if I'm gonna play a game with a little bit of janky fighting mechanics, at least I wanna rip someone's spine out while I'm doing it. Donkey Kong Country is amazing. I'll go back and play that all the time. It still looks cool, and it's a Super Nintendo game that they did a lot with that you wouldn't think the Super Nintendo would be able to do, and it doesn't even have the frame rate issues that a lot of Super Nintendo games had. I don't know how they did it, but that's an amazing game. Come at me, bro. Twisted Metal. I loved Twisted Metal. And then Twisted Metal Black was great and dark and awesome, but I gotta say, if you go back and play Twisted Metal now, it's not that fun to play. It has not aged perfectly. Sorry about you. I love Twisted Metal, but it's more of a past tense. You go back and play it now, it just doesn't play that well. Super Mario 64 is amazing. You can play that game all day. The DS port was amazing. What a game. GoldenEye 007, that's really great at this point. It hasn't aged terribly. When it came out, holy cow. Especially the multiplayer and everything it did for first-person shooters, no disrespect to GoldenEye. But you go back and play it now, you'd end up wanting to play Perfect Dark instead, which also came out for the N64. So I think Perfect Dark has aged better than GoldenEye. Ocarina of Time is the greatest of all time, and I'm pretty sure that's the only one I'm gonna put in the GOAT category. It's the best game that was ever made so far. You cannot overstate how much this game did for the gaming industry. You had Super Mario 64 come out and introduce this idea that you could have 3D gaming. I remember we would call it anywhere on the screen because we were so used to 2D platforming. This idea that you could go anywhere on the screen is how we described it. That's how revolutionary Mario 64 was. But then, a couple years later, Ocarina of Time comes out and just cranks that up to the max. It creates almost this open world type experience that wasn't something anyone was doing. The music The characters, the story, the gameplay, all of it was flawless. The only thing you could say about this game that wasn't perfect was the water temple was annoying and difficult. That's it. That's all. Everything else is perfect. Greatest of all time. Unreal Tournament has not aged perfectly. It was very fun. It revolutionized online PC gaming, first-person shooter. You got so many classic things like headshot and multi-kill and all that stuff. Everything you know in first-person shooters, thanks to Unreal Tournament. And the Unreal Engine still runs most of the games you like. That's all well and good, historically amazing, but if you went and played it right now, it hasn't aged perfectly. Some of these games, the gameplay just doesn't get old with time, and other games, it does, and Unreal Tournament is one of them. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 will be the first PlayStation entry to go into amazing. I still find this game fun now. I think they're making an HD, full remake of this, and if so, I'm here for it. The game's just still fun. Even if I sit down and play it right now, it is still fun. It was fun then, it's fun now. The cool little secrets, unlock Spider-Man and all that. This was the best skating game ever made. It was just something else. Halo Combat Evolved. For me, that game's awesome. It did a lot for first-person shooters on console. It's still pretty fun to play now. It did borrow very heavily in its lore from things like Half-Life, which kinda gets in the way of some of my respect for its storytelling, but nevertheless, it's an awesome game. It's still fun to play now. Metroid Prime is on that same category of awesome. This is an old GameCube game. Visually, I don't know how they did this game. Even when you look at it today, it looks pretty decent. It is a great game though. It's still fun, really good puzzles. Metroid Prime is right up there with Halo. It didn't get the same respect that Halo did because nothing that came out for GameCube got the respect it deserved because everyone slept on the GameCube, but Metroid Prime is a really good game. Then you get Wind Waker, Zelda the Wind Waker. Now this is going to be really unpopular, but I'm not a huge fan of Wind Waker of all the Zelda games, so for me it's just great. They did the HD remake, so I gave it another shot. So now I've played through this game in its entirety twice. Once when I was younger and it came out for the GameCube originally, and then another time when they did the HD remake, which was not too long ago. And both times, I don't know, I've always kind of liked the cel-shaded aesthetic of it, but the story, the pacing, the sailing elements, I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed the little one for DS where you're on the train better than Wind Waker. So it's still great, and it hasn't aged poorly, mind you, but I just never liked it originally that much compared to other Zelda games. So it's just great to me, which isn't bad. Again, none of these are bad. I still think it's a great game. Halo 2 falls into actually hasn't aged perfectly. It relied heavily on dual wielding as its new shtick, and the story got really weird. I think Halo 3 has aged better than Halo 2, and Halo 3 isn't even one of these Game of the Year games because it got beat by other games that came out in the same year. But I don't think Halo 2 has aged perfectly. It's still really fun, but honestly, if you give me the choice, I'd rather play Halo 1 than Halo 2. And they've done remasters of them, and I'd much rather play the remaster of Halo than Halo 2. Resident Evil 4 is amazing, and that was exclusive to the Nintendo GameCube when it came out, and it was exclusive for the GameCube for a long time. What a weird game to be a GameCube exclusive. But man, the GameCube was fire! You don't even understand how many sleeper hits the GameCube had. Resident Evil 4 always will be amazing. If you haven't played that game, there's a bunch of versions of it. Pick one up, play it, you won't regret it. It's my favorite Resident Evil game by a long shot. And then you have Zelda Twilight Princess, which is also amazing. Twilight Princess, I love that game. I still love that game. I played it on the GameCube, which I think was better than the experience on the Wii, in my opinion, because the Wiimote was not the best mechanic. You can't take away from that game. I feel like it didn't get the respect it deserved because of when it came out at the end of GameCube's life cycle, start of the Wii. People hated on it for the controls. It ended up being Game of the Year for most people, but I think from a consumer level, it kind of was a disappointment for a Zelda game, which is too bad. If you never played Twilight Princess, go back and play it. Super Mario Galaxy! For me, this is awesome. It would be amazing, except Super Mario Galaxy 2 exists. And if you don't know, Super Mario Galaxy 2 was basically Super Mario Galaxy, but better in every way. It was just fantastic. The difficulty was turned up to a satisfying notch. It was just amazing. But Mario Galaxy, you've probably heard me talk about it before on this channel if you're frequent. Fantastic game. It still visually looks amazing today. It was on the Wii, and everyone dogged on the Wii for not having enough technical prowess, but Mario Galaxy didn't care. It still looked amazing. Again, it would be amazing instead of awesome, but if I'm gonna go back and play Mario Galaxy, I'm always gonna play Part 2 rather than Part 1. Grand Theft Auto 4, I think is great. Grand Theft Auto 3 and San Andreas and some of the Vice City and everything had done a lot. But then Grand Theft Auto 4 just really next-gen consoled it. They added a lot of gameplay mechanics and the cell phone, and the visuals were amazing. The story was finally actually good with decent voice acting, even though they didn't pay any of their voice actors. But it's only in the great category because, let's be honest, who's going to go back and play Grand Theft Auto 4 right now? Grand Theft Auto 5 exists, and while Grand Theft Auto 5, for when it released, wasn't as impactful or amazing as Part 4, it's still a better game in every conceivable way, and they're both just so similar that what's the draw to go back and play Part 4 right now? I don't think there is one. So because Grand Theft Auto 5 eclipses everything that 4 did, even like better characters, everything, every aspect is better, then Grand Theft Auto 4 is just great, because why would you go back and play it? Like, for some of these other games, even though there are better Donkey Kong or better Mario games or newer Resident Evils, there's still a reason to go back and play the other ones. Grand Theft Auto 4, I say, well, what's the reason to go back and play it? The story's not that compelling, so there's not really a reason to go back and play it. Uncharted 2, Among Thieves, is amazing. Probably my favorite Sony exclusive on this list. It's the best of the Uncharted series still, and there's, 4 of them and some sidebar ones. It took such a big step from Uncharted 1 to Uncharted 2. Amazing story back when Amy still worked for Naughty Dog, and they still knew how to write a story because she was on the staff. Fantastic game. Red Dead Redemption. I was all about this game when it came out, but when I've gone back to play it, I don't know, it's not that Red Dead Redemption 2 made it seem worse. It's just, it's tedious. It doesn't have the replay value I thought it would. Like, once I'm done playing through it, it's not like Fallout New Vegas where I want to start a new campaign. It's like, when I'm done, I'm done. So I'd say this game is just great, because once I'm done with it, I'm done with it. I don't want to go back and do it more. Skyrim. Skyrim's amazing. I've owned Skyrim on like so many different things. PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. I love Skyrim, and I love playing it in different environments, modding it, not modding it, playing it over. I always want to go back, be a different character, do a different thing. See, this is the difference between like your Grand Theft Auto 4, Red Dead Redemption, open world adventures, and Skyrim. Skyrim gives me a reason to keep coming back, so all of its greatest elements I want to relive again and again. You'll notice in my list, a big thing is, do I want to, today, go back and play this or not? And so the higher up on the list is the more likely that I would sit down, pick it up, and play it right now. And the lower on the list is, it's a great game, but I don't have a reason to play it. This was this artsy-fartsy thing, and I haven't played it. The Last of Us is great for the same reasons. I'm not going to go back and play The Last of Us, okay? I got the story. The story was amazing. It was a fantastic experience, but then what? The gameplay's not that good. Why would you go back and play it again? Dragon Age, or whatever it's called, Inquisition, I haven't played those. I really need to, because I like the Mass Effect series. It's like a mix of that with dragons. I really need to play it. That's on the haven't played list. That is on my top of I actually want to play this game. Some of the other ones on the haven't played list, I don't care to play, but Inquisition, I really want to play. The Witcher Wild Hunt, The Witcher 3, I've tried with this game many, many times. I'm going to put it as great, because I really liked how it looked and felt, but it's not really my style of game. I think it's a great game. I know for a lot of people it's just like fantastic and they drain hours and hours and hours into it. I don't like the half open world, half not feel of it. I don't know, there's something about me and The Witcher that never hit it off. So I could tell I'm playing a great game, but I don't necessarily enjoy it. Overwatch I haven't played. I don't even know how that ends up as game of the year. What kind of game is this even? But apparently people really like it. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I said I was only gonna have one game in GOAT, but I don't care. Now I have two. Because Breath of the Wild, I've put more hours into that than I think any other Zelda game, except maybe Ocarina of Time, I don't know. Even the breaking weapons mechanics, which is the only flaw I see in that game, it being too brutal on broken weapons, they at least give you enough weapons to keep getting more and more, and you can get the Master Sword to kind of fix some of that. It released at a time that people were still sleeping on the Switch, so I think a lot of people might not realize how good this game is, but if you've woken up and you realize the Switch is the best console of this last generation, because it is undeniably so. If you try to make an argument that PS4 or Xbox One are better than the Switch in any conceivable way that matters for enjoying video games, you're completely moronic, because PCs exist. So go ahead and get yourself a Switch and play Breath of the Wild, which is the best Zelda game to come out since Ocarina of Time, and if you know anything about video games, that's a big flippin' deal! Then you have God of War on PlayStation 4. Now this is a game that I didn't necessarily fall in love with, but unlike The Witcher 3, I could really see its greatness a lot more, so for me this game is awesome, even though I didn't like this game. I didn't like playing it. It felt like it was kind of the same experience I had with Witcher, where I just wasn't really attaching myself to the half open world, half not. That's not my style, okay? When games do that, I usually don't like it. I want you to either be an open world game or not an open world game. I don't like the weird hybrid games, and God of War is one of those, so that's always big points taken from me. I either want to know I'm in a specific level or give me the world to play with. It's hard to do that correctly, because Zelda games kind of do that. They toy with that. Not open world, but not closed world. But I don't know, sometimes it feels natural, sometimes it doesn't. And God of War, it didn't feel that natural. It felt linear while trying to play like it's not linear. But I respected the story. I loved the Thor hammer mechanics of the weaponry. The visuals of it were fantastic, so it was an awesome game. It's not amazing for me because I just didn't enjoy playing it enough, but it's better than great because I could see myself going back and playing it again, especially in a few years, to see if my opinion on how the game plays has changed. And then this last year, this game called Control won, and I'm very interested in playing this game too because it looks interesting. It's almost like Force Powers sort of thing. I'm gonna have to try to play Control and Inquisition are the two main ones on this list that I really want to play. I'm not too interested in the other three. But anyways, guys, this is my list. I know this is going to be one that's hotly contested and debated. People get real passionate about their video games, bro. But, you know, leave your opinions in the comments below where you think I went horribly wrong or horribly right. I don't care about your opinions, but they help the algorithm out, so let your voice be heard for people in the comment section who might care more than I do. Until next time, I scheme, you scheme, we all scheme for ice cream. Bye!